Hi, and welcome to our show, The Awakening, here on WGSN-DB, the Going Bold and Going Solo Network. The information and opinions expressed on this show are just that, the opinions of the individuals speaking based on their individual personal experiences. They are not intended to diagnose and do not constitute professional advice or recommendations. Okay, and that said, we get to deal with this beautiful raspy voice as I enjoy the allergy season. So excuse me if I silence my mic and blow my nose. So hello, my name is Tina Huggins. I'm your divorce coach specialist and restorative family mediator. This is Joe Huggins. And today we're graced with the beautiful Kaki Perdue. Kaki is a CPA, which is a certified public accountant, and a CFP, which is a certified financial planner. She spent 12 years as a CPA in the public accounting and 6 years as a chief financial officer for a tech company before launching Look Both Ways Financial in 23. Kaki strives to meet her clients where they are. That's kind of an important thing, with no judgments. Kaki is on a mission to teach her clients to feel safe, strong, and secure in managing their money. So our topic today, yes, is about finances because we've got Kaki and she knows all this stuff about finances. But our actual topic is on financial abuse. I asked Kaki on here because Kaki has a little bit of a background in dealing with financial abuse coming from her background in finances. This is a topic that I know from some of my family experiences and from dealing with my clients. But this is a really major topic, Joe. Joe has a lot of experience that he will probably share some of that with you today, Kaki, as we go through this. So when I start these shows, I like to kind of give a little bit of understanding of what financial abuse is in this case, or whatever our topic is. So this is just from Google. It's not anything other. And we all know that Google has its own little thing that it does with stuff. So, but this is what Google has to say about financial abuse. A common tactic used by abusers to gain power and control in a relationship. The forms of financial abuse may be subtle or overt, but in general include tactics in concealing information, limiting the victim's access to assets, or reduce accessibility, if not cut it off, to family finances. Now we're going to move on to Kaki's story. Okay, so I've seen different kinds of abuse coming from my family and then coming from Joe's stuff, and then a bunch of my clients. In fact, I would say all of my clients deal with financial abuse in some form or another, because that's what I deal with the most. So, Kaki, what type, or let me just ask you to explain your understanding of what financial abuse is.
Well, first of all, Tina and Joe, thank you so much for having me join you today. I'm really happy to be here. It's funny, the first time I heard the term financial abuse, it took me a minute to say, is that real? It took me a minute. And then when I started to explore the topic more, I realized, oh yes, it's very real. And all abuse comes down to the two things you mentioned, power and control. Abuse is about one person having power and exercising that control over another person. With financial abuse, it can come in a lot of different forms. It might be that one person goes to work, they bring home a paycheck, their spouse takes that paycheck and does not allow them any access to the money that they have earned. That's one method. It could be that one spouse goes out and opens up credit cards or various forms of debt in the other spouse's name and doesn't tell them about it. So not only do you have loans coming out but you also, there's secretiveness and they haven't told you about it. And it could be that one spouse will not allow the other spouse the ability to work. They say, no, you're not allowed to work. Now, in all of these things, if we require money to live, right? Last time I went to the grocery store, I had to pay.
Right.
And so if you are controlling somebody's money, then you are controlling their steps in life. So it's really about control.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Control is the whole thing. And I know that Joe's kind of has this experience with the financial abuse, but there's different parts in Joe's story. He's got financial abuse from his ex, and then of course I swear all of my clients deal with some form of financial abuse, not just from their marriage, but then it goes right into the divorce process. I have several of them right now that are unable to pay their attorney because they are restricted to fund. Actually, they're not even restricted. They have no access to the funds that are coming in. And he's actually even saying in this one case, the father, that he refuses to give child support. He says, you can take half of the money, or I will pay half of the mortgage and you can use that as child support. So there's just so many forms of that. And then Joe also has a deal where his kids went through financial abuse from the mom, and he ended up in the middle of that. But before we get on to his story, I know that you have a story about one of your clients, and I'd like for you to share that with us if you could.
Yeah. So this client, we're gonna call her Sarah. She was fully self-supporting. She had a condo, she had a job, she had a car. She was fully supporting herself. And she meets this guy, they fall in love. She decides to move out and move in with him. She sells her condo. They get married a few months later. And shortly after they get married, husband says, I don't want you to work. It's my job to provide for the family. And there were some undertones of some perhaps very conservative, religious beliefs happening there as well. But they were married over 5 years. Sarah had about $100,000 from the sale of her condo that went into her bank account. And the way, normally the way assets work, if you have premarital assets before you get married, as long as you keep those assets separate, then it can remain separate property. Well, they ended up commingling the assets and then spending the assets over the 5 years. And there was always the goal of this money should be spent on a new home for us together, and we're building our lives together. But they never did that. So, throughout this 5-year period, Sarah realizes, well, I can't work. I don't have any freedom. This person is verbally abusing me. I'm going through emotional abuse, and it's starting to have, there's been a couple of instances of some physical abuse that have sprinkled in. And she says, I can't do this anymore. So they end up divorcing. And it took her, some time to realize exactly what had happened in those 5 years, because I think it started a little bit slowly and then escalated. And that's also common with abuse in general, is that it can start small. The abuser tends to groom the person that they're abusing a little bit. And so, it happens over time. So that, that's what happened to Sarah. She was not allowed to work. She had money that was hers that was spent on things, and maybe perhaps more things for him to support his business. And at the end, she's left with walking out of that marriage with almost nothing. She was very lucky because she had a sister that she was able to go stay with and get back on her feet. But without money to leave a marriage, it's really hard to leave. And it took her 4 or 6 times of trying to leave before she finally left. And that's also common. It takes it takes a long time to leave an abusive marriage, whether it's financial abuse or other type of abuse happening inside that marriage. She didn't have any children. If she'd had children, it makes it that much more difficult to leave a situation like that because you're not only financially responsible for yourself, but also perhaps, for those children. And so that not having financial means makes it that much harder to leave a difficult situation.
Yes. And that is where a lot of my clients get to. Some of mine are backwards. So they're the female, but they're the breadwinner in the family. And he's been spending all the money and telling her, where's the money? Where's the money? And that's kind of where you were at. You were making all this money and you're.
Yeah, when you give up your role as your money and stuff, and someone tells you, well, she didn't tell me to stay home and not work. So she told me to get my butt out there and work. So I was a workhorse. So that's the opposite there. But I could see in Sarah's situation as she was told not to work, so she's given up all her rights. So it'd be hard to get back on your feet after being, submerged so long in a relationship. But so I was, let's just say, allowed to go to work. I was a workhorse, and she stood back and delegated the money to go here and there and there. So I didn't have any control whatsoever over the money, which is a really bad thing. If I ever ask about, how are we doing, where are we at, and she'd get real defensive. So that's a red flag right there when they get defensive, and she threw it back in my lap. How would you feel if I asked you about one of your clients, and would you have that information? And I said, give me a shot. I probably will, because I lived it with my clients. That's all the job she had, was just control the money. She knew where it was, but it wasn't transparent. So that's huge abuse. Transparency. If it's not there, that's abuse. So
Yeah. And then I know I spent many conversations with you and your attorney when you were mad at the attorney, although it wasn't the attorney's fault, because your kids had money that she was the custodian. So tell us that story.
Okay. So she was in control of the money, and we did agree to set money aside. We never agreed how much to set aside. It was kind of like a surplus thing at the end of the year to clear the accounts and put it in the kids' accounts. Well, if I had to do over again, I would put my name on the custodianship and let feathers get ruffled. Because at that time, I'll just say, walking on eggshells in the marriage, and you don't want to upset the apple cart. So you want to get along at any cost, which is a horrible way to have a marriage, of course. And so that's the life I led, and I didn't want to upset the apple cart. And every once in a while, let's just call it, you try to butter it up and go, hey, how are we doing in such and such, and it doesn't matter. It's not going to fly. So don't even try, and I learned that way. So does that answer that?
Oh yeah. So I mean, you're telling the story, and
Right.
I know that when you were talking with the attorney all the time, you would tell the attorney, you've got to get the kids' money out.
Right, because I wasn't the custodian on there, and she was, of course. And so I'd go around and around with the lawyer and spend, honestly, thousands and thousands of dollars, and somehow he couldn't do anything about it. But afterwards, I found out that she, as a custodian, should have put that into financials, that she's a custodian on those, savings, checkings, investments, and that kind of stuff. And I believe that when they go through court like that, they should be made. The kids are all over 24 to 31, so they're way of age. The courts, why don't they, I guess that's divorce court, so.
She's
You
not a
know,
lawyer.
yeah, right, I know. It still drives me crazy till today, and the thing of it, what it upset me most was she said to one of the kids, or a couple of the kids, your dad spent that money. And I said, yeah, so, and one of the kids came to me and said, Dad, she said that you spent the money. I said, I'll tell you what, go to the bank and find out who signed on it, whose name is on the accounts. And they did, and they saw just her name, so they knew I didn't do it. So we just got to the truth of that. And so truth is very powerful, and but she still tried to lie a couple other times and said that she reinvested the money.
She had like
So it
3
just-
or 4 different stories that she told about that money.
Right.
Each kid had a different
Right.
story.
Yep.
So what Joe had to deal with that, and telling his daughter to go to the bank and see who signed up for that. I was in Germany. I lived in Germany for 3 years. And during the time I was in Germany, let me back up just a tad. I went to school prior to moving to Germany. So I lived in Florida for a little while, and I went through school, and my dad was the one who paid for that schooling. And it was just a few $1,000s because of the type of school it was. And so then I moved to Germany, and at some point I had to have money for car parts. I had set several $1,000s aside. So I had my dad, or let's see, I called my mom, and she said that she didn't have the passbook to get into my savings account, that dad had it. Well, that's kind of odd, because my dad never took care of anything. And so anyways, I called dad and I said, hey, I need for you to get into my account. Mom says you have the passbook, and I need blah, blah, blah amount of money to fix this car so that we can get it back on the road and then get headed back to the States. And so I got the money, and then we moved back, and I asked my mom for the passbook for my account. She said, your dad still has it. I went and asked him, and he said, oh no, your mom's always had that. So there's a contradiction there. And then so I went to the bank, and sure enough, it was my dad's signature. He removed all of it. And so when I went to talk to him, he said, well, that's to pay for your college. You were supposed to pay for your college all along. So that happened. And then because of a course of a long time frame, I realized just how financially abusive my dad was. If he heard that, he probably would not have done those kinds of things, because he wasn't abusive on any other form except for maybe alcohol abuse. But so in your course of helping Sarah, how did this come about? Did Sarah come to you, or did you discover this? How did that all happen with Sarah?
Yeah, Sarah came to me. She had gone through this divorce, and she said, okay, Kaki, I need some help figuring out how to rework my budget. I need help with a budget. I need help automating my savings. I need help learning how to invest. And so we worked together on that. And she, Sarah had a 4-year college degree. She didn't have very much trouble getting back into the workforce. But what she needed was help rebuilding her confidence and her strength with managing money again. Because, if you haven't like exercised those muscles in 5 years, then it can be a little intimidating getting back into it. So we started the very basics. We picked a bank account for her that was not going to charge her fees. We opened up an account at Fidelity. We talked about Schwab, Fidelity, Vanguard, the 3 big low-cost brokerage houses. She said Fidelity sounded good. We opened up 3 accounts for her. We opened up a brokerage account, we opened up a Roth IRA, and we opened up an IRA. And then that allows her to begin investing in different taxable vehicles. And then lastly, we worked with her on her 401k plan. We helped her sign up for the plan, pick her investments, and get it automated, and then make sure she's getting the match. And she had questions about, should I choose Roth? Should I choose 401k? We talked about her goals. We talked about, current taxes, unknown future taxes, and we helped her walk through that decision tree. In doing all of that, when she's working with me, I'm a little unique from a financial advisor perspective because I charge hourly or fixed fee, and I'm not charging based on an assets under management. So that was good for Sarah because, one, she didn't have a whole lot of assets to begin with. So a lot of financial advisors wouldn't even touch her. And two, she wanted unbiased advice from somebody that's not trying to sell her stuff. Our goal was teaching her so that way, bad for my business model, but then she doesn't need me very much in the future because she has learned, and she's learning how to manage her own investments on her own. And then she comes to me once a year for a check-in to make sure that she's still on track, and does she have any new goals that she wants to talk through.
Yeah. And I know when I'm dealing with he doesn't have an IRA and all of that stuff. He invests in
No,
property.
I got IRA,
Okay, you still got
Yeah.
the one.
traditional, and then a Roth. Yeah.
Well, I know that most of his investments are in property. He likes the investments, but I know that I spend once a year with my financial advisor just talking about, of course, he's got to check off all those things because he works with Edward Jones. So they have a criteria that those guys have to follow. So I know that working with you, I wouldn't have to follow some of that criteria. And you, just like what you said here with Sarah, that you explained that to her and she got to make those choices. I love that's that independence that you're giving. So to me, that is huge. And I talk with clients, and a lot of times I push them in a direction to go where you're at, because I don't tell them that's where they go, but I'm like, you get unbiased information this way. It's not about Edward Jones or Fidelity or whatever that might look like. It's what's going to work best for you. So I love that you're able to do that with your clients.
Yeah, Tina, let me digress for one moment. Let's say you have a 401k at a job, you change jobs. You go talk to somebody that's an asset manager. Not to pick on Edward Jones, but you go talk to the Edward Jones guy. He's an asset manager. So when you talk to him, he's going to say, hey, listen, why don't you put it into an IRA? I can help you manage it. We're going to make you so much money. But when you talk to me, I'm not an asset manager. And I will say, okay, these are your options. You can keep the money right where it is. You can put it into an IRA and you have more investment options. You can put it into your new 401k if you're joining a new company. And here are the pros and cons for each of those decisions, because each of those decisions does have pros and cons. And you need to understand the full picture. And so somebody that's like me working on an hourly basis, I'm going to be able to give them a really unbiased view for what solution might be best for them.
Yes. So with our topic being abuse and its effects, so what kind of effects, maybe Sarah, or that you have seen from any of your clients, what kind of effects do you see? And then how do you go about helping them as they move into the different life, a new life, a better life?
Yeah. I mean, well, for Sarah, she gave up 5 years of working. That's 5 years of not getting a 401k match, which is, $25,000 in aggregate, maybe more. She gave up 5 years of Social Security credits, which is significant. She gave up 5 years of the contributing to her own financial goals. But, the other thing she gave up along the way was her power. And helping her get that power back is more important than the things that she gave up. Now, this may seem mean, but I'm not intending it to be mean. One of the things Sarah and I talked about was acknowledging her role in allowing herself to become a victim in her marriage over that 5 years, because she, in some ways, gave up the control and turned it over. And we talked about how can we take this terrible experience and how can we put on a special pair of glasses and view the experience through gratitude of what did I get out of it?
Mhm.
And for her, one of the things that she got out of that experience is that she was actually stronger than she knew she was. And she said, well, now I know I can stand on my own 2 feet coming from nothing and rebuilding. And she said, I will never allow this to happen to myself again. And that is more powerful than anything, is because now she is stepping into her own light and she is taking steps to move forward in a positive way, in a way that she wants to live her life. So, now we're focused on what are the things that Sarah controls, and she controls how she spends her money and how she invests her money. And what is she doing to, take control of her new destiny?
So, and that's good. So, excuse me, I did paper investigation for his attorney, so I had to get all the paperwork. So I had to go into his ex's office and gather all the papers that were left behind. To a lay person, they might, and to me in the beginning of all this, might just think that is the messiest. I mean, very nothing was filed where it needed to go, just the messiest form of paper filing, if it was filing at all.
Like the old shoebox method, receipts in a shoebox, just jammed in.
I think it was worse
Well,
than that.
it was like 20 years worth, and we had 2 businesses, so you can imagine. And it was maybe 20 boxes, banker boxes, just full.
So
Gosh.
she would ask, and this is some of the abuse that took place, not just her abusing, but there's so much financial abuse that took place in his, just while I was in the middle of all of that. But when you go through all of that stuff, she was asking, you're only supposed to get 4 years, the last 4 years of stuff when you go. She wanted all of it.
She wanted like the last 12 years. It's like you can want all you want, but you're only getting this much. So, and that's what we provided. And I think there was 10,000 copies, stuff. We burned up 1 or 2 copy machines.
I think we burned up 2 copy machines.
And we went to Quick Copy or whatever. They wanted to charge us, was it $10,000 or something?
$10,000 to make all the copies.
So we just did it ourselves.
Because that was all she was asking for. And so I literally copied 7 banker boxes worth of stuff. We ended up taking them into the attorney, which we had to pay for, and then she went in and we told her she could have A, B, and C box, but the rest she had a photocopy on herself. Well, there was papers that ended up missing and not present, of course, when she was done, and the attorney couldn't be in there with her because of costs and blah, blah, blah. So there was so much financial abuse that took place just between him and his attorney and her, and asking for all of this stuff that never was used in the divorce. She just demanded it. And then we went through with his CPA, and we said, I don't know, at least 4 hours there. And I am not joking. I looked at what we were going through before we took it into the CPA. And she had like, I don't know, 32 banks, cards, I don't know. Accounts. There were 32-ish accounts. And she would literally move money in a day, some from here, over here, some from here, over there. And she would go all day long and she would move this money. So it was very difficult. And that was her filing in her office, was just that way. It was so that nobody could follow it. And we can applaud her for that, because it was a difficult thing for everybody to follow. And they did what they could. Had we known then what we know now, a forensic accountant would have been brought in to actually go through and find all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So in his case, the effects it affects us clear into our marriage, actually in a positive way, in the sense that we keep our money completely separate. He, of course, would never let a woman ever do what happened to him again. And he keeps paper files. There's nothing electronic. He keeps all paper files, where I keep electronic files. And in the course with electronic files, you know, to me, it's much faster, but he's got all of his stuff. He knows where to find it, and he could go and get them. We keep our money separate. And one of the things that I recommend to young women getting married, and my son who's getting married in October, don't put your money together. A lot of people think that's exactly what you want to do, but you need to have some control over your money. Have a third account that you share. And you can, I'm sure, attest to that. But you share, you both put equal amounts of money into that account. That pays your mortgage, that pays whatever it's paying.
But doesn't have to be equal. It can be proportional. Yeah. Be careful though, Joe, because if your house burns down, all of your paper files are gone.
Right. Well, I was gonna make a funny and say I'll just be in the house fire, so no worries there. But I will erase that. But yeah, you're right, 100% right.
Yeah, it's funny, Tina, you mentioned the sharing. Yeah, I did a podcast on that recently. I also host a podcast called Look Both Ways Financial, and it's Q&A, and people were asking, hey, I don't know how to do this. And, you know, I don't think there's a right or wrong way to share or not share finances within a marriage. It depends on the background and the two people in that marriage coming up with a system that works for them.
Yes.
That's what's most important. And finding the things that are going to make you feel safe and strong with your own money inside your marriage are also very important.
Right. So I could see the benefit to just commingle the money if you're younger and you have kids that you want to have kids and that kind of stuff. It'd be a nightmare in my mind is to try to be separate but living married together. So and that's what I did with the first marriage is I commingled everything, all my bachelor house, my bachelor property, my whatever. And later on in the marriage, she congratulated me for that and actually said, thank you for, you know, she was setting me up for taking half. And I said, no, I'll end up with that. And she goes, she already knew the law and I was pretty naive about it. And she's like, nice try, but that's not going to work. And you're going to owe me alimony and you're going to, you know, all this stuff, all these threats, you know, so
yeah.
She paid out pretty good because, you know, she brought debt to the marriage and I had a ton of assets. So, you know, maybe another red flag for people watching that to go, are we equally yoked? You know, one person taking, one person giving the whole marriage. And really that's what it was. And she loved the control. You mentioned control and power. And that's why, yeah, I don't have the rear view glasses, but I've moved on and I'm doing really well. And the best thing to do is just live the best life you can and, you know, fix the broken stuff as fast as you can. And that's what I did, you know, after I got out of the marriage and they said, well, you owe for half her credit cards, which was a ton of money. And then she, at the tail end of our marriage, when we were going through divorce, she dove into the HELOC that we had. And meanwhile, I was paying like $1,000 a month, just principal only. And I had that puppy nailed way down. And so that gave her like 50 some thousand to go boom. And she spent it all the way up to the max. And then she had 126,000 in her private account that I found out later that she had a private account. So I didn't rummage. I wasn't a nosy, whatever, but I should have been, you know, when the red flags popping up. And I waited till the marriage was over. I went through her office, looked, found statements, told her about it. And when you tell a liar about it, they're just going to lie and go, and this is what she said, you knew about that. and of course I didn't know about it. So
Yeah. I will say this, Joe, you talking about your story and telling it, it doesn't sound like you have like like this rage or this anger, when you talk about it. I'm sure you feel those emotions occasionally, but
I work.
but when you talk about it, you seem to be kind of clear-headed, and that's what happened to me, but now I'm moving on. And
Right.
I think that's an important thing to highlight, because for folks that are in the midst of this right now, the emotions can be super overwhelming. And the more you hold on to the anger or the shame, or, the hate, the more you're going to hurt yourself in the long run, because you're not able to embrace the good things that are awaiting for you.
Absolutely right. And Tina worked on me for a long time to get to where I'm at, because there was a ton of rage. I felt used, abused, and stupid. I just felt like ignorant, and like, why did I give up that power? Why did I give up myself? I gave up my whole self, you
Yeah.
know. And there, when I got a divorce, my family said, we didn't know there was enough of you left to come back, honestly. And that's what they said. And but and here's the if, it's not going to happen. But well, okay, I'll just say this is what I'd recommend to the viewers. Don't just guess for your lawyer, which I guessed. I just kind of, and I love God and everything. I did pray. I'm sure I did not pray enough, because I just said one prayer in my truck. Please help me find the lawyer. I went in, and yeah, I found the lawyer, but he wasn't the right one. So and for coaching and that kind of stuff, I definitely would get a coach. I would get a CDFA, get someone that knows their stuff, not just what the lawyer is going to recommend for you to do. Listen to podcasts that pertain to you and what you're going through. Google it. I had no idea about Googling stuff. I had no idea. I was too busy being angry, just lost a lot of money in a lot of years,
So I kind of laugh about some of that stuff, because way back when I was a kid, I got to listen to how my family adult cousins divorced and how things happened. And then years later, I found other women and how they were divorcing. And if his wife had not extended the divorce out for 7 years from filing to permanent order, 7 years, she would have had a lot more money in her pocket, because by going that long, she showed that she could live without spousal support. So the court saw that she didn't need spousal support. So the $300,000 that could have been in her pocket ended up in his lawyer's pocket. So whether that prayer seemed like a good answer, might have been a good answer. You never know. So I actually had made a post about this yesterday, about your mind, what you put your mind on. And he would be angry. I mean, there was holes in his office wall because of things that would go on, and he just get pissed off. Holes.
It's a
Broken phones.
size of a fist.
It's size of a fist.
That's
But
weird. What a coincidence.
Right. How'd that happen?
However, whatever you're putting your focus on is what you're going to draw to you. So Joe and I focus so much on the happiness that's in our home, and the wonderful people that we have out here in Arkansas, and the beautiful grass that we've mowed already twice, and and our warm weather, and just, and our dogs laying here, and all the animals. And then, and you actually had mentioned a CDFA. If you got a good CPA, if you got Kaki,
right.
and Kaki could look at things and could see things that are misplaced and not in the right place. If she needed a forensic accountant, then she could say, hey, this is where we're at.
You bet.
So I think that it's super wonderful that you will come on and you will share all of your information, because the viewers need to know about the financial abuse and how it affects people. You know, like you're talking about the anger and how great Joe is with it. He has done a lot of work on it. He spends a lot of time in prayer, and he's got a really good buddy out here that he talks to on a regular daily basis almost.
Yeah.
And helps his buddy out with his situations too. So I think that communication and talking about the right thing is so good. So when you have clients that come to you and they're angry and frustrated and pulling their hair out, how do you handle that, Kaki?
Well, I think it's always good to recognize that there's always an option of counseling, and destigmatizing counseling is super important because I have a heart for helping people, but I'm not a trained counselor. Just as I am not a lawyer and I cannot draft an estate plan for you because that's not my expertise. Um, but if I, you know, when you're talking to somebody and they're feeling really angry, I think it's important to acknowledge it, to name that emotion, and to say, let's take a deep breath here. Okay, let's reset, and now let's focus on the things that are important to you and the things that will make you happy. Let's take it back to your priorities. And let's say you tell me that your priority is to save enough money so that you can become an expat and go live in Costa Rica or El Salvador or wherever. Then I want to help you create that vision, so that way you kind of refocus and say, okay, you're right. This is really important to me. This is my number one priority. And in order to do that, these are the tangible steps I need to take to make that happen. But it's about, refocusing and helping to redirect that energy. And just acknowledging, yeah, I feel really angry right now and it's getting in the way.
Yeah. And it's a financial abuse and its effects. The effects can get you paralyzed. I have a client in Colorado, we'll say, that she's got her head stuck in the sand so deep that she's refusing to get the divorce. She hasn't accepted the summons. She hasn't been present. She's clinically depressed. And so with that, we have two other therapists along with myself who are helping her deal with this. Now, I have a background coming from law enforcement, but I also have a background coming in from natural medicine. And so when I have clients that are this so depressed, I literally have them get off the couch and do jumping jacks 3 times a day, because I'm telling, this is what I tell them, that you need to have blood flow to your brain. And that has got to be oxygenated. And so jumping jacks are one of the things that help with that. She's got the right medication. She's dealing with her therapist, but nobody's got her doing this. So this is what I've got her. And then if she gets frustrated with me when we're on there, she wants to cry, then I'm like, stand up, sit down, stand up, sit down. We've got to do a little bit of movement again to get the blood flow. One of the things that the effects of this financial abuse, yes, you end up without money and you think that you can't afford Kaki's help, that you can't afford my help, that you can't afford this. And that is the wrong thing to think, because there is a way through it. There are people and places that you can go that can help you. People that are homeless, there's places, there's I used to teach self-defense at a battered women's shelter, and there was lots of women that had been battered and were pulled out of their home by people who cared and taken to the shelter. So those people, those groups are there to help support you. We, Kaki and myself, are here to help support you in any way that we can. And that may be just to let you know that this person is available to help you, or this organization is here. I just made contact with the Single Moms group in Kansas City that is doing wonderful work to help single moms prepare for new jobs and help other single moms with childcare and things like that. So there are lots of organizations out there. So As we start to wind this down, Kaki, what are some of your important pieces of advice that you would give clients who are watching, prospects who are watching?
Well, first of all, the person that's going to care the very most about your money is the person you see in the mirror. And the more you can do to educate yourself, then the more you're going to be able to have a shield and a sword fighting off people that might try and take advantage of you. And that could come in the form of a future romantic partner, but it could also come in the form of some sort of financial person trying to get you to buy some sort of product that they're going to earn a big fat commission on that's really not good for you. So the more you can learn, the better off you'll be. Also, then after that, having a vision and then having taking your money and paying attention so that your money is working towards your goals. Your goals are important, and put your money towards the important things. And if you find yourself overspending because you don't feel good and you have a low self-esteem and you spend for an endorphin rush, then automate your investing and your savings goals. Put it into a separate account that you don't touch. And if you can automate that, then most people will learn to live on a smaller paycheck because they have already paid themselves first. And then as you learn, then the next thing is to trust your gut. If you're working with a financial advisor or financial planner, or even myself, if somebody suggests that you do something that's not completely comfortable, it doesn't sit right, you're like, I don't know why, but this doesn't feel right, do not do it. Take a step back, get a second opinion, get a third opinion, learn some more, but do not do something if it does not feel right. Always, always trust your gut. And then, if you're looking once, what you've built up some assets and you want to get some additional help managing your investments, number one, look for somebody that is a certified financial planner. That is table stakes. To become a CFP, it requires taking, like 6 graduate level type courses in addition to, 4-year degree, doing a complete financial plan scenario, having a number of hours. You have to have a number of years of education. You have to pass a 6-hour exam. Being a CPA is a bonus because I can also help my clients with tax planning. A lot of financial investors, financial planners, money managers, if you will, when you're talking to them, if you have tax questions, a lot of times they'll say, well, I can't answer that. You'll have to talk to your CPA. So the benefit of working with somebody that's both a CPA and a CFP is we're able to integrate the strategies, whether it's for tax planning and investment planning. But make sure that they're a CFP, and then make sure that you ask and know exactly how they're getting paid. And don't feel bad about asking that. Just ask. Like, okay, do you earn commissions? Do you, this investment that you want me to buy, are you getting charged? Am I being charged a commission because you're suggesting it to me? Or, are you getting paid just based on the assets that you're managing and that's it? Or do you get paid on an hourly basis? Understand how they're getting paid, because how they get paid is going to dramatically impact the advice they give you. And even if they're a really good person, they're a really good financial advisor, if they're working for a big company, they are also an employee of that company. So they may try to do what's right for you and also what's right for their employer, because that's their paycheck. So, you just have to be aware of those things. It doesn't mean that you're not going to find a really good advisor at a big company, but you need to be aware.
Yeah, those are really great tips.
Yeah.
So Joe, and I wanted to just throw in this just real quick. When I got with Joe, because I was raised on a farm by a very wonderful grandfather who taught me a little bit about money. And so when I got with Joe, I made sure that I told him that I was going to sign a prenuptial agreement to protect his children. He worked really hard for his money, and so his kids needed to be protected. So I'm the one who broached that. So as we divorce and we're thinking of moving in with somebody else, that's something that you as people need to think about, is that protect your assets. You've created them, protect them. And a prenuptial is a really good way to start. So talk to your attorney about that. So that's a little bit of advice there. So
and if you didn't get the prenup done, you can always do a post-nup after you get married. Don't forget that.
Yes.
Very
Thank
good
you.
advice.
Thank you.
Yep.
So what last minute advice do you have for the viewers?
Okay, so what Tina and I has been working on this week is rewrite your story. So we were talking about hard times, right? And you brought that up, put your different glasses on is what you mentioned. And that's just rewriting your story. So what positive thing, and you mentioned that Sarah got stronger, and wiser. So stronger for sure. But in same ditto with me, it's never going to happen again. And I'm not all abused and reactive or anything like that. It's just, and Tina helps me out so much. So we've been working on rewriting the story. When you're going through the anger stuff, probably don't expect to rewrite the story when you have the anger. Deal with it, maybe embrace it, and then let it go. Work on it if you need counseling or whatever, however you handle that. But I'm in a spot in my life right now where I can rewrite the story. So be kind to yourself, do it in your time, get the help you need. And so that's what I've been doing, is rewriting the story to go, what did I get out of that marriage?
Good.
That's
the positive.
That's
Positive
positive.
things. Yes.
So I had to dig deep on that one.
So Kaki, how can people reach you?
Yeah, thank you.
Well, I did mention my podcast earlier, Look Both Ways Financial. That's also the name of my company. And so my website is www.lookbothwaysfinancial.com. And my email is Kaki, that's Kaki, at lookbothwaysfin, FIN.com. And I welcome questions and people reaching out, to see if we can help them.
Yes, yes. And I always end my show with an explanation. If you are in a domestic violence situation right here, right now, in the US, call 911, get the police officers there. And as Joe often says, once you get them there, place charges on them and keep those charges. And if you are in the UK, it's 999. A same thing. Get those officers there, get them there and put charges against the person. Get yourself safe. If you are dealing with a domestic violence relationship situation, the domestic violence hotline is 800-799-7233. That number again is 800-799-7233. You can reach me and Joe through my email at coachtinalynn@gmail.com. That's CoachTinaLynn@gmail.com. You can also find my website at divorcecoachspecialist.com. And Kaki, it was a pleasure to have you here with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tina. My final disclosure or a disclaimer is required by the CPAs. And while I am a CPA, Look Both Ways Financial is not a CPA firm.
Good job. Well, once again, thank you very much, Kaki.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me.